call to order. Please call the roll.
Mr. Buckner,
Here.
Reverend Campbell,
Here.
Mr. Gilstrap,
Here.
Mr. Jones,
Here.
Vice Mayor Miller, Mr. Raleigh, Mayor Saunders,
Here.
Mr. Shanks,
Here.
Mr. Vogler.
Here.
Please stand for the invocation and the pledge tonight given by Council Member John Gilstrap.
Will you bow your heads as I pray? Dear wise and loving Father, first let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health that we need to fulfill our child. Thank you for our friendships. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thanks as well for the freedom to embrace you or the freedom to reject you. Thank you for loving us even so, from your boundless and gracious nature. Bless us as we make decisions. Help our decisions to be honorable to you and glorify you. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Gilstrap. Under communication, those who wish to speak on items not on the agenda will be heard at this time. If you wish to speak on any agenda item, you will be heard when the item is considered. Anyone wish to speak? Thank you. There's a motion to approve our minutes of January the 6th, 2015. Mr. Campbell, is there a second? Mr. Raleigh, discussion on the motion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Buckner,
Aye.
Reverend Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Gilstrap,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller, Mr. Raleigh,
Aye.
Mayor Saunders,
Aye.
Mr. Shanks,
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Aye.
Appointments to Board of Directors, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Mayor. I'd like the council to consider two resolutions. One is a resolution appointing Harold E. Garrison as a member of the Planning Commission, and number two is a resolution appointing Arthur Kraft as member of the Building Code Board of Appeals.
Is there a second? Mr. Jones, discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk?
Reverend Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Gilstrap,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller, Mr. Raleigh,
Aye.
Mayor Saunders,
Aye.
Mr. Shanks,
Aye.
Mr. Vogler,
Aye.
Mr. Buckner.
Aye.
New business consideration of adopting an ordinance vacating and abandoning surplus right-of-way on Piedmont Drive. I open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak? Anyone wish to speak? Close the public hearing. Council, your pleasure. Mr. Shanks.
Yes, Mayor. I move for adoption of ordinance vacating and abandoning 0.289 acres, more or less, and 0.031 acre, more or less, of surplus right-of-way along Piedmont Drive.
Is there a second? Mr. Raleigh, discussion on the motion. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Gilstrap,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller, Mr. Raleigh,
Aye.
Mayor Saunders,
Aye.
Mr. Shanks,
Aye.
Mr. Vogler,
Aye.
Mr. Buckner,
Aye.
Reverend Campbell.
Aye.
Consideration of authorizing acceptance of property for future recreational use. Mr. Gilstrap.
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of a resolution approving and authorizing the acceptance of a deed of gift of approximately 3.5 acres, more or less, described as parcel number 51490 along the north side of the Dan River in the city of Danville, Virginia.
Second, Mr. Vogler. Discussion on the motion. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller, Mr. Raleigh,
Aye.
Mayor Saunders,
Aye.
Mr. Shanks,
Aye.
Mr. Vogler,
Aye.
Mr. Buckner,
Aye.
Reverend Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Gilstrap.
Aye.
Communication, Mr. Manager.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Attorney.
Nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Madam Clerk.
Nothing, sir.
Okay, please call the roll.
Mr. Buckner,
Yeah, I'd just like to say what an honor and a privilege it was to be in attendance at the NASCAR Hall of Fame this past weekend in Charlotte for the induction of our hometown hero, Mr. Wendell Scott. the Wendell Scott Foundation was definitely there in full force, along with the rest of the family, and just a great time. And Danville, I hope you all watched it on TV. If not, find a rerun. It is definitely a part of history now. Danville is definitely on the map with Mr. Scott's induction to the Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reverend Campbell.
Yes, I'd like to ditto what Councilman Buckner stated. It was a wonderful, glorious occasion, historical event to be present on Friday for the induction of Wendell Scott into the Hall of Fame. It was out of sight, Hollywood all the way. I just hope that city, council, administrators can come up with a way that we can celebrate Wendell Scott annually and possibly connect it with an existing festival like the River District Festival. Some kind of way we can tie it in. If it's a national event, definitely local, we should do all that we can to honor this great man who is really putting Danville on the map. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Gilstrap.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's a tremendous honor for all the residents that Mr. Wendell Scott was inducted to the NASCAR Hall of Fame. My congratulations to the family and to the citizens of Danville for having such a outstanding individual in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones.
Mr. Mayor, as stated, it is a great honor that has been bestowed upon Danville, and to the Scott family, just want to say congratulations. And on Saturday, to talk to Jeff McLaughlin, Wendell Scott's grandson, Warwick, took down some young people from the STEM Academy, and the young people got a chance to be a part of that as well. So congratulations to the Scott family. It's a great honor for the city of Danville. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Miller.
February 2nd, 2014, Duke Energy Power Plant near Eden, the holding dam pipeline failed. 39,000 tons of coal ash spilled into the river, polluting our river, turning it gray. In the weeks afterwards, headlines shouted and Duke Energy repeatedly stated, "We will make it right." February 2nd, 2015 came and went yesterday. Less than 10% of the spill was cleaned up. There have been paltry grants to a local foundation, a few $100,000. The CEO of Dan River made almost $8 million last year. The promise of reparations has been non-fulfilled. Nothing's in sight. And notice Pennsylvania County's Board of Supervisors are talking about bringing legal action. We've been patient now for a year. We're waiting for something to happen, waiting for them to make it right. You see nothing in sight. It may be time for us to take the same route. But in the good news, I was there too at the Wendell Scott celebration. Wonderful event. I was amazed that all of us were, all the friends, the family, the people that raced with Wendell Scott, helped him out. Some people were very obnoxious to him, shunned him. Other people helped him out, gave him spare parts from their manufacturers, gave him money. It was just amazing to hear the stories of the people that had raced, and every one of them told what a wonderful man he was, what a great guy he was. I mean, his perseverance, his tenacity. I mean, how many of us in this room would have kept going against those odds? Probably none. I mean, just keep going. You knew the deck was stacked against you, and you just kept going out there and racing. And he won a heck of a lot of races. As mentioned, over 50 to 60 people came down. There was a busload of people came down to see our hometown hero. And I think, as Reverend Campbell says, we need to have an annual event honoring Wendell Scott. We should be proud of this, and we are proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I think we all would agree that we have cheese hats and we have Wendell Scott hats. You are wearing the winning hat, Mr. Vice Mayor. Thank you. Sorry, Ms. Jenkins.
Mr. Raleigh.
Just congratulations to Wendell Scott and his family. Sorry I got sick and couldn't go. I did watch you on TV though. Number two, Mr. Manager, in the last 3 weeks, at the railroad track crossing that goes Clearview Drive across where you go into Danville Golf Club and Pine Tag. There have been a couple of train problems that have held traffic up there for 45 minutes to an hour on 2 different occasions. I was stuck in it one time on Saturday, and then a couple of weeks ago, my wife going to work, and I think even Mr. Gilstrap's grandchildren had to be pulled between the cars at a stop so they could get to school on time. But there are 3 ways to get out, all on West Main Street. You can go through the golf club and go down behind number 2 green where the maintenance shed is. There's a crossing, big crossing there at the golf club, and then there's another crossing that used to be open that's got wires across it now that we've used sometimes, but that's only a couple of 100 feet from the main one. And these trains have stretched all across all 3 of those. And I know that there could be a possibility of another connection out from behind Corning, out by Oak Creek Drive. I'd just love to see the engineers look at it, city engineers, and see is there any non-costly way. I know even if it was just dirt. Because when a train stops there for an hour and these trains are picking up, I mean, we all knew when we bought out there the tracks were there, but when trains stop for an hour at a time, it could be tough on somebody that had a house on fire or they had to be at a meeting at a certain time. More importantly, safety. Somebody's having a heart attack. We all knew when we bought out there the trains going to come up and down the tracks, and that's fine. But when they stop for an hour, and it's just coincidentally that in the last 2.5 weeks it's happened twice. And if you could get the city engineering staff to look to see, is there any other opening back there? I've kind of gone back through there. One of the frontage, Corning Drive, the frontage road on Corning Drive, it could be some things off of that that could hook into to back over that way. But I'd just like to see, there are many concerned citizens in the neighborhood that have voiced things to me. And again, I want to make sure everybody knows we understood when we bought that property that there was a train track there. And when a train comes by and it takes 5-7 minutes, so be it. But when they stop dead and you have no way to get across because all 3 crossings are blocked up for as much as an hour, it causes some alarm. So if you could just do that and let me know when they have something. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Shanks?
Mr. Wally's comments were well taken. I certainly, there's certainly a safety issue there. I would hope, I also believe there's some legal issues that aren't being adhered to. I would hope that the manager would look into the legal issues of blocking the railroad crossing by Norfolk Southern, because I think there are remedies in place to avoid delays such as that. Now, obviously, if there's an accident or something like that, then there's possibility of the entrances being blocked. But in the case that you're talking about, extended periods of time, I think there's some laws involved there that I hope we can explore. And perhaps one of those options also would include keeping the furthest. You mentioned one of the exits being further down the railroad track than the other 2 that I'm familiar with. But anyway, I hope we can explore that. You know, sometimes business gets in the way, and I'm really disappointed that I could not attend the Wendell Scott dedication and Hall of Fame induction. I was fortunate enough to be able to see the TV show that Channel 7 had prior to that induction ceremony, and that was a wonderful presentation that Channel 7 and Roanoke made. From all indications, what I saw and I've heard, he was quite a man and quite a dedicated racer and family man and businessman. And my absence in no way reflects how important I felt that induction ceremony was. And I appreciate the city putting together a trip for council members to be able to go. I think the Economic Development Department worked to help that out. Mayor, I was in attendance at the funeral that you spoke at this past weekend. We, the city of Danville, lost a huge business person, family man, and a real dedicated person to our community, our city, our region. And I don't want to take anything away from what you said, because you summarized his life very well in the ceremony. But to the family of Bobby Marshall, our prayers and thoughts are with you, and thank you for sharing them with our community. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Vogler?
I first want to thank Councilman Raleigh and Shanks for bringing up the Pine Tag area issue. I think probably some other members of council have also been contacted about concerns with the tracks there and safety issues of getting in and out, if particularly there was a medical emergency. So I hope that is something that we can look into, any potential options there. In regards to Wendell Scott, I also was fortunately able to attend, and it was a very enjoyable evening, weekend, to see so many people tell you stories and things, and really just an amazing event for his family and also for all of Danville. And I was very honored and proud to be there, to be a small part of it and to take it all in. Tonight I did want to address an issue that everyone on this council has been asked about over the past several months, and probably will so in the days ahead. And I'll do my best to correct some misconceptions that have been out there, as well as discuss the reality of the situation. The Tobacco Commission has been a very important partner with the City of Danville in recruiting new industries to our region for over the past 15 years. This partnership has helped create thousands of jobs at industries that are alive and well today. We also know there have been instances where there were companies that didn't live up to expectations. I don't believe that we as a council and we as a city have done a good enough job at explaining to the public what has happened, what is happening, and what we've already done to hopefully prevent these situations from happening in the future. I've always believed in speaking directly to the people, and that's what I'm going to try to do tonight. I did want to point out some statistical facts, and I'm going to read these straight from it because I don't want to misquote them. The Tobacco Commission has awarded 47 grants totaling more than $37 million to the City of Danville over the life of the program. Of the 47 grants, 31 of them have been fully successful. 10 of them are currently active, and it is possible that some of those will not pan out. 2 grants were restructured, and the clients have repaid an agreed upon portion of their grants to retire the balance. 4 grants, which equals 8.5% of those awarded, are currently in default. Of those, Blue Ridge Fiber Board repaid the small amount they owed. U.S. Green Energy has entered into an agreement to pay back their grant money, and so far they have done so, which leaves Web Parts and GOK International. While I was not here for the Web Parts grant that was decided upon, I could speak in regards to GOK. I can say we made a mistake. And as it turns out, the information that we as a city council were given was incorrect and possibly untruthful. In an effort to bring jobs to a community that desperately needs them, we accepted statements as facts. But ultimately, the buck stops here with us, with city council. I wish we had done more to question the information we were provided and with the assurances we were given. But we didn't. We didn't do enough, and I didn't do enough. And that's something I'll regret for a long time. So I accept my share of responsibility for this, and although we can't go back in time and change what has been done, I believe we can take steps to ensure that it doesn't happen again. And I did want to outline things that have already been done that maybe the public's not been aware of. As most of you know, last year we hired a new economic development director, Mr. Telly Tucker. I believe he will be a great asset to our city. Brown Edwards, certified public accountants, performed a special audit of grant and incentive payments issued to 7 clients. They provided recommendations on strengthening financial oversight of grant administration that our economic development department immediately put into operation. The Danville Commonwealth's Attorney's Office was notified of suspicious grant client activities that were uncovered by the audit, and an investigation has been ongoing since last year. The city retained attorneys at Taxing Authority Consultant Services to pursue collection of grant and incentive funds in cases of non-performance. 2 lawsuits have been filed so far. Last year, the city retained the law firm of Kilpatrick Townsend to more thoroughly vet national and international grant prospects to ensure the clients selected for funding are business worthy. And this one's key. This one guarantees that the vetting process no longer hinges on one man or one department. And on a broader note, in a few months, we'll be rolling out a new open data platform for the public to use. This essentially opens the book to the entire City of Danville budget. Every line item, every expenditure, every dime and every dollar will be made available to the public in an easy-to-use online system. This is something that myself and others on council have advocated for quite some time, and I'm glad to see that it's on its way. But notably, the public's trust has been shaken over the past year, and this is unacceptable. My hope is that we begin to regain that trust with some of the steps that we've taken that have been mentioned tonight. I'd love to sit here and tell you that this council's never going to make another mistake. That would be a lie. We're not a perfect body because we're not a perfect people. We never will be, but we can learn from our mistakes. We can grow from them and hopefully eventually prosper from them. Someone once said, when you make a mistake, you take your knocks, you learn your lessons, and then you move on. And that is what we will do. And I can say with all sincerity, my wife would say to a fault, that every morning I wake up and every night I go to bed thinking of ways to make Danville a better place. I know that's the case for everyone sitting up here. We love this city. We wouldn't spend the long days and sleepless nights if we didn't. There's a lot to be accomplished over the next couple of years. And I believe we have an obligation to do our very best for the people of this city. When we work together, we can achieve great things. And with your help, that's what I intend to do. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor Saunders.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, I realize tonight in particular that I'm probably the oldest person in the room. And I say that proudly. However, the audio in this room either is me or the audio or both. If you could maybe test it, check and look into it, because I have a hard time hearing some of the things being said, as well as when the public come to make presentation. Again, it could be me. I'm old, all right? But I'm proud to be old, okay? But it's something about the audio. And let me say to Councilmember Gilstrap, happy 45th birthday. And we think that anniversary, excuse me. Yeah, let's get that right, anniversary. I just told you I'm the oldest person in the room. Anniversary, congratulations, and your wife deserves a prize, okay? NASCAR was a great event. Special thanks to the council members, to our city residents, staff, others who attended the event last weekend. It was absolutely wonderful. Several things happened, met a lot of people. Met Ned Jarrett, who sold Wendell Scott the blue number 34 car. That was history to be seen. We met a Mr. Jim Bray, who lives in Canada, Mr. Larkins, who raced with Wendell Scott and stayed in his home here in Danville. We also met a Mr. Arnold, who's Wendell Scott's chief mechanic, who now lives in Detroit, Michigan. Lots of history, and there were a number of people there. So proud of the Wendell Scott family, him as well. He left a great legacy, and I certainly hope that our city will continue to remember Wendell Scott. Also, I want to say again to Chief Broadfoot, who's in the room tonight, thank you for the special presentation you made in City Council at our work session in terms of policy, policing, and how we do it in Danville. You did an excellent job, and I'm glad that River City TV is playing that over and over again. A lot of people learned a lot from watching your presentation. And I know I am, all of Danville is, and I know you are as well, proud of your men and women, and we thank you all for what you do every single day. And finally, thank you, Mr. Shanks. Danville did lose not only a great businessman, but a great man in our city, Mr. Bobby Marshall. Bobby has done so much for so many. He was blessed to be a man of many resources, and he shared them with any and everyone that he could who needed his services. It was not uncommon for, during the rough times, 2008 and beyond, when people were losing their job and not having work to do, it was not uncommon for Bobby to look for work to do, using his equipment, doing the work free of charge, just to give people a job, and paying them without being reimbursed for his services. We will never know how many young people went to college because of Bobby Marshall. And I don't want to get into his business, and I'm sorry, family, if I sound insulting, but I know for myself that on 1 year, Bobby spent $153,000 of his personal funds to send kids to college, to help kids. No one knows that. He was not one to brag about that. Bobby owned over 600 properties in our city. A lot of people stayed there, some free, paid when they could. Bobby sold people houses, financed it for them. He has done so much for so many, paid people's doctor bills when they didn't have the money to pay for that, never said a word, never asked for any reimbursement. Bobby Marshall was an amazing man, and he will be greatly, greatly missed. And I say to the Marshall family, thank you so much for sharing Bobby with us. Meeting adjourned.